study does exist that it indeed indicates low oxygen environment group gain more muscle, but that 5 times increase in muscle mass difference is in relative terms. So basically the rate of growth achieved during the duration of the trial, during the 8 weeks of the trial. So relative to the baseline amount of muscle mass those subjects carried. With that being said, the study comes with a long-ass list of potential methodological limitations. Small sample size aside, the researchers had absolutely no control over subjects outside of the research, outside of the facility environment. They absolutely had no control over their caloric intake, their nutrition, their recovery. There are actually studies done prior which indicate hypoxic conditions do reduce appetite. So basically they directly affect ghrelin signaling, therefore reduce hunger. Which to an extent does explain why the subjects who were training in a low oxygen environment lost weight, lost fat, especially considering they didn't have a conscious control over their caloric intake. The difference in muscle gain rate, on the other hand, is a bit more interesting. The researchers have a bunch of theories why it happened, but no clear conclusion. One of the primary suspects, one of the primary reasons why a low oxygen environment group most likely gained more muscle is the fact their performance was technically sabotaged. The performance was sabotaged in both groups. They were forced to use very short rest periods. They were using 30 to 60 seconds rest periods between sets. But from previous studies, we know for a fact training in hypoxic conditions can significantly increase the levels of systemic metabolic stress, which can aid in hypertrophy. It's very similar to blood flow restriction training. So the fact they were forced to use very short rest periods between sets basically benefited the subjects who were training in a low oxygen environment, while at the same time it was taking away from the subjects training in normal conditions. Well, it was taking away from their ability to perform at their max capacity on each subsequent set, which they need to maximize hypertrophy stimulus, which certainly explains the difference in muscle growth rate. Although this particular study has a very limited insight into the physiological response to training in hypoxic conditions, their hormonal profile, the studies done prior indicate training in hypoxic conditions actually leads to a significant increase in IGF-1 production, which we know for a fact directly affects hypertrophy through more than one mechanism. So there's also a pretty high chance training in hypoxic conditions significantly affected the hormonal response to resistance training too. Should you lift in a low oxygen environment? Should you lift with your altitude mass current to gain more muscle? Let's put it this way. There are studies done prior which found no statistically significant difference between the groups. Statistically significant difference in muscle mass increase. So you should probably take the findings, the results of this one study with a grain of salt, especially considering all the limitations within the research setup. The fact we're talking about all untrained subjects aside, there's a chance this could have been a fluke. There's a chance the subjects who were training in a low oxygen environment just had a lot better genetic response to resistance training, and there's a chance they had a lot better optimized recovery and nutrition outside of the research facility. So until we get more research on this particular subject, you probably won't see me recommending wearing an altitude mask while lifting, but you do you.